I had planned a simple surprise for my son's birthday, something sweet and heartfelt, a chocolate cake from his favorite bakery, the kind he couldn't resist. I wanted to see his face light up to share a quiet moment of joy between us. But the moment I peeked into his car, my heart nearly stopped. There was someone sitting in the passenger seat, someone I didn't know yet, somehow felt like a threat the instant I saw her. My name is Linda Harper. I'm 64, a widow, and for as long as I can remember, I have trusted my son, David. 36, my pride and joy, the boy I cradled in my arms, the young man I helped guide through heartbreaks and triumphs alike. I had tucked myself quietly behind the driver's seat, holding the cake in my lap, grinning like a fool at my cleverness. I imagined the surprise on his face, the warmth of our connection. I never imagined the betrayal waiting for me. As David swung the door open, I froze. There she was, Vanessa Collins, his business partner, impeccably dressed, her expression calm yet sharp. Her voice sliced through the anticipation like ice. His weak mother won't be a problem much longer. I felt a jolt, a shock so sharp it made my hands shake, the cake trembling in my lap. My own son, the boy I had sacrificed everything for after my husband passed, now spoke casually about plans to make me irrelevant. They discussed my house, my savings, even the idea of moving me into a nursing home, as if my life, my choices, and my independence were mere inconveniences. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. For months, I had been quietly stripped of control over my own home and finances, and I hadn't even known it. The world I thought I understood, the family I trusted, the son I believed loved me, shattered in a single breathless moment. The betrayal cut deeper than grief, deeper than loneliness, because it came from the person I had trusted most in life. But as fear and shock coursed through me, something else flickered inside a spark, a stubborn flame that refused to be extinguished. This betrayal, as devastating as it was, would not break me. It would not define me. No, it would become my catalyst, the very thing that ignited the determination I needed to reclaim my life, my voice, and my dignity. That day, hidden in the back of my son's car holding a cake, meant for celebration, I realized I was no longer just a mother. I was about to become a fighter. The next morning, I felt the weight of yesterday's shock pressing down on me like a storm cloud I couldn't shake. I knew I couldn't ignore what I had overheard. Something had shifted in my world, and pretending nothing had happened would only make me more vulnerable. I started going through every detail I could get my hands on: bank statements, account ledgers, legal documents. Piece by piece, a horrifying picture emerged. David wasn't just helping himself to convenience or small perks. He had become the primary holder on every account, while I, the rightful owner, was reduced to a secondary role. The house, our family home, the place my late husband and I had built together, had been legally transferred into his name through a power of attorney I had signed, while grieving, trusting him implicitly. Each document I uncovered felt like another knife in my chest. Step by step, the truth became undeniable. David and Vanessa weren't acting impulsively or without a plan. They had meticulously calculated every detail to take control of my life, my finances, and my home, with the ultimate goal of putting me into a nursing facility so I would no longer be an obstacle. The realization that someone I had loved and nurtured could betray me so completely was staggering. And then there was Vanessa. A closer look at her background revealed unsettling patterns. She had a history of exploiting elderly people, sometimes in situations where inheritance or financial control was involved. It became chillingly clear she wasn't just opportunistic, she was a predator, and I could very well have been her next target. Rage mingled with disbelief, and yet beneath that, a spark of clarity burned in me. My instinct was screaming that I could not sit back and do nothing. I had to act not just for my own safety, but to prevent her from hurting others like me. I began documenting every encounter, recording conversations discreetly, and keeping a meticulous log of their movements and interactions. Every lunch at an upscale restaurant, every luxury car, every subtle comment became a piece of the puzzle I was assembling. It was exhausting and frightening, but also empowering. I wasn't just a grieving widow anymore. I was a detective, a strategist, a woman reclaiming her power one careful step at a time. Each revelation fueled my determination. I knew that the next steps I took could protect my independence, my home, and potentially warn others about the dangers of manipulative, calculating people who prey on trust. As the day wore on, I realized something important. I wasn't helpless. Not anymore. The same intuition that had saved me from naivety in the past would now guide me. My goal was clear. I had to expose the scheme, safeguard my life, and ensure that justice was not just a word, but a reality. And with that, my journey into the fight for my own autonomy truly began. The day David arrived at my house to discuss financial arrangements and the supposed sale of my home, I greeted him with the calmest smile I could muster. On the surface, I seemed compliant, agreeable, an elderly mother trusting her son. Inside, however, every nerve was on high alert. I had spent days gathering evidence, recording conversations, and organizing documents that would expose the truth. Today, all of that preparation would be put to the test. David carried his briefcase like a man delivering a business deal rather than visiting his mother. Vanessa followed her presence sharp and calculated, like a shadow glued to him. As they settled in, David began presenting papers, expecting me to sign without question. I reached into my cardigan pocket and activated the small recorder I had hidden, the device barely larger than a thumb, capturing every word with perfect clarity. "Sign here," David said, sliding the first document across the table. He was calm, measured, confident. I nodded politely, pretending to read, but inside I was ready to challenge every deceit, every manipulation. When the discussion turned to the nursing home, my stomach tightened. Vanessa spoke of doctors and safety. David assured me it was for my own protection. And then as they pushed harder, trying to frame me as incapable, as someone who needed supervision, I drew a steadying breath. I knew the truth, and I was ready to stand my ground. I confronted them calmly, using the recording's bank documents and notes I had meticulously prepared. I reminded them that every action, every plan they had concocted had been observed and documented. Tension escalated to a fever pitch when they crossed the threshold into my home, uninvited, attempting to assert control over my space. I could feel my pulse racing, but fear did not dominate me. I called Patricia, my attorney specializing in elder law, and my sister Linda for backup. Within minutes, they were on their way, and I had law enforcement on standby. The calculated calm of David and Vanessa began to crack. Their confidence faltered as they realized they were no longer orchestrating this encounter alone. In those moments, the power dynamic shifted. I was no longer the passive observer in my own life. I was an active participant wielding evidence and strategy to assert my autonomy. The fear that had once paralyzed me gave way to a focused determination. Every glance, every word, every subtle move I had documented became leverage against their scheme. As the situation reached its climax, I could sense the disbelief radiating off them. The threat of the law, the presence of my sister, and the irrefutable proof I held transformed a moment that could have ended in coercion into a turning point of empowerment. The question hanging in the air was stark. Would I retain my home, my finances, my independence, or would I be swept aside by the very people I had nurtured and trusted? For the first time in weeks, I felt a profound sense of control. The storm of betrayal was not over, but I had found my footing, and the next moves would be mine. With the recordings, bank statements, and meticulously gathered documents in hand, the battle that had seemed impossible began to turn in my favor. David could no longer hide behind polite words or feigned concern. Faced with undeniable proof, he admitted to financial elder abuse. The court handed down a sentence that, while not severe enough to erase the betrayal, ensured accountability: 2 years probation, full restitution, and a restraining order preventing any contact with me. Vanessa's case was even more complex. Her past schemes had caught up with her, and the evidence against her spanned multiple victims. She now faced criminal charges for fraud conspiracy and elder abuse waiting for trial behind bars. The realization that justice could prevail even against those closest to me was a revelation. In the weeks that followed, I reclaimed my home, my life, and most importantly, my independence. I opened the doors of my house not to fear, but to possibility and empowerment. One of the first projects I embarked on was creating the Linda Harper Community Garden, a place for women like me, mothers, grandmothers, widows, to gather, learn, and grow both literally and metaphorically. The garden became a symbol of resilience, a space where life, laughter, and learning could flourish. Each morning, I would step into the sunlight, filtering through the leaves, listening to neighbors chat, children laugh, and friends share stories of their own battles. I found a new kind of pride in watching people care for the garden, tending to plants, as if nurturing their own strength. It was a living reminder that life could be reclaimed, nurtured, and celebrated, even after betrayal and loss. During those early days, I felt a mix of emotions I hadn't experienced in years: joy, freedom, and an almost giddy sense of accomplishment. I realized that true power isn't about money or control. It's about standing up for yourself, trusting your instincts, and having the courage to take action when others betray you. Every small victory, the first morning tending the raised beds, the first conversation with a grateful neighbor, the simple act of opening my front door without fear, was a reclamation of my dignity. What I had thought would be a painful, permanent fracture with my son, transformed into a broader understanding life, was no longer defined by those who had wronged me. The betrayal, though deep and lasting, could not take away my autonomy, my creativity, or my joy. I had discovered the profound truth that empowerment comes not from revenge, but from reclaiming your life, shaping your own story, and turning pain into purpose. In that period of restoration, I also learned that resilience could inspire others. Friends, neighbors, and even complete strangers reached out sharing their own stories of loss, betrayal, and triumph. I realized that by fighting back and taking control, I hadn't just saved myself, I had become a beacon for others navigating the shadows of their own lives. In those moments, as I watched the sun rise over the garden beds I had planted with my own hands, I finally felt what freedom truly meant: to live fully, fearlessly, and with the certainty that I was the author of my own life. Reflecting on everything I went through, I realized just how much this experience has taught me, not only about my son and his partner, but about myself and the strength I never fully recognized until now. The first and most important lesson I learned is the power of intuition and vigilance. That quiet, uneasy feeling you get when something seems off is not something to ignore, even, or perhaps especially when it involves someone you love like a child. I had always trusted David implicitly, and that trust nearly cost me everything. Listening to that inner voice and paying attention to the subtle signs of deceit became my first line of defense. I also learned the crucial importance of protecting your assets and personal rights. Your bank accounts, property investments, and legal documents are not just pieces of paper. They are shields that safeguard your independence and your future. Monitor them carefully. Understand what you're signing. Ask questions. Never let grief, distraction, or blind trust compromise your control over your own life. Financial abuse often comes from those closest to us, so awareness and caution are not signs of paranoia. They are acts of self-preservation. Equally important is taking timely action and documenting everything. Every conversation I recorded, every transaction I reviewed, every detail I noted became evidence that I could rely on. When facing manipulation, especially from someone you trust, this evidence can be the difference between remaining a victim and regaining control. Courage doesn't always roar. It sometimes speaks quietly through careful preparation and thoughtful strategy. Support from others proved to be another pillar of strength. My lawyer, specializing in elder law, guided me through the legal maze. My sister Linda was there for emotional and logistical support, and close friends offered encouragement, advice, and perspective. Facing betrayal alone can be paralyzing, but allies provide the strength, knowledge, and reassurance needed to assert your autonomy. Never underestimate the power of having people you trust in your corner. Most profoundly, I discovered that independence and empowerment have no age limit. At 73, I am living proof that you can reclaim your life, rewrite your story, and create a future filled with freedom, dignity, and purpose. The fear and helplessness I felt in those early days after uncovering the betrayal have been replaced by confidence, pride, and joy. I am no longer defined by others' actions or by their attempts to control me. I am defined by my choices, my courage, and my resilience. Today I live in my own home, free from fear and manipulation. I have opened the Linda Harper Community Garden, a safe, nurturing space where seniors and women of all ages can gather, learn, grow, and support each other. Watching people care for the plants, share stories, and build community has reminded me that life can flourish even after pain and betrayal. My story has become not just about survival, but about creating something meaningful for others, something lasting. If my journey resonates with you, I hope it inspires you to trust your instincts, protect what matters, and never underestimate your own strength. Share your experiences, lessons, or thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Please like, share, and subscribe to Real Her Stories to discover more stories of courage, resilience, and empowerment from women just like us. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your voice, your independence, and your life. Your story matters. Your strength matters. And above all, you are capable of writing your own story no matter your age.